Tonight, right here at Sacred Larungar, this internal, profound Vajrasattva Dharma assembly can be considered truly complete and fully accomplished, because tomorrow our revered monastic community will solemnly recite the profound and sacred medicine Buddha Sutra, a significant spiritual event, and then it will be completely finished, finally. This significant Vajrasattva Dharma assembly has a rich and profound history spanning over 20 years. In the past, it was open to the public. Now, it truly allows many people to actively participate in collaborative joint practice sessions. Currently, there are absolutely no restrictions whatsoever for joint practice. So this particular time, you also participated in the joint practice, right? Indeed, people came from various places. When I was dedicating the merit today, I saw there were so many people. The merit derived from this is truly and utterly complete. And throughout this entire process, everyone practiced in accordance with the proper methods and principles. I am also truly and deeply grateful to all our Dharma friends who are gathered together here today for everyone's truly diligent and dedicated practice over these past 7 days. People from all different places and various regions were also quite cooperative and understanding. Because before the sacred Vajrasattva Dharma assembly officially started, I had also specifically mentioned the transportation arrangements and logistics here, as well as the sanitary conditions here and various other contributing factors in this specific place. So it's best not to have too many people coming to participate, otherwise you might just be asking for trouble yourself. And in the end, you would end up feeling very disappointed. As a result, not that many people came here, everyone practiced together in their own respective places. In this effective way, the merit from the group practice is absolutely complete. All the monastics and all the sincere, virtuous people dedicate the merit together collectively with sincere hearts. In this way, until the attainment of a full Buddhahood, this virtuous route will not be exhausted. At the same time, all the karmic offenses we have accumulated since beginningless time, whether they are natural misdeeds or prohibited by the Buddha, in front of all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, especially in front of Buddha Vajrasattva, we confess misdeeds. With the power of everyone's pure intention and the inconceivable power of dependent origination, as well as the power of Vajrasattva as the principle, and the aspiration power of all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions, with all these various conditions coming together, I truly believe that the negative karma of ourselves and all others can be effectively purified. This is also an extraordinary dependent origination. One does not necessarily have to be physically present at a certain place, nor is it absolutely required to so-called participate or attend. Such things are not always necessary. As long as everyone genuinely shares the exact same intention and actively does something meaningful together, then everything will be fine. Then in the end, we will all attain the same merit together. This is what is taught in Buddhism, that causes and conditions are inconceivable and dependent origination is inconceivable. This is the principle behind it. So today, according to the specific requirements of the previous lessons we studied, I'm going to talk a bit about how dedicated practitioners should actually do retreat. In this regard, before we get into this particular topic, I will briefly recite a transmission first. I will recite the ancient oral transmission of the Sakyamuni Buddha practice ritual. Of course, today they have given me a lot. They deliberately printed a lot of practice texts for me in advance and carefully placed them right here for me to dutifully recite. But I simply can't just fall for it quite like that, or allow myself to be so easily deceived, it wasn't mentioned online, was it? No? Was it mentioned? Mentioned what? The ritual, nothing else was mentioned, right? Huh? All right then, let's keep this whole process simple to recite Sakyamuni Buddha practice ritual. This headset is very tight. Your current technology is becoming less and less advanced these days. So here I will recite one for everyone. Sakyamuni Buddha practice ritual. Why am I reciting this particular ritual like this? Because tomorrow, both in the lunar calendar and the revered Tibetan calendars, it is the profoundly significant day when our beloved teacher, Sakyamuni Buddha, attained complete enlightenment, became a fully awakened Buddha, and also the sacred day of his parinirvana. On the 8th or 7th day of the 4th lunar month is the birthday of Sakyamuni Buddha. Of course, according to many different calendars, tomorrow is indeed considered his birthday. This is because in various different calendrical systems there are different interpretations. For example, in the Chinese calendar, the 8th day of the 4th lunar month is a more commonly and widely accepted date for the Buddha's birthday. And in our Tibetan calendar, however, it is celebrated according to some calculation methods from the Kala Chakra tradition. Some say it's the 8th day of the 4th month, while others say it's the 7th. There are different interpretations, but regardless of which it is, this sacred Sagadawa month is truly extraordinary and profoundly significant. Among all 12 months of the year, it is indeed the only single month that contains all three of the Buddha's major and most auspicious important festivals. Only Sagadawa this month has this distinction. So during this sacred month, Buddhists all over the entire world hold their own special commemorative events in their own unique ways with great devotion and sincere hearts to remember or honor the Buddha, such as gatherings and ceremonies. These are all held during this time. So today I would like to recite something for everyone, the Sakyamuni Buddha practice ritual. Over 10 years ago, we also actively promoted and carefully translated this for everyone, but starting this year, I would like to make some different kinds of appeals to the public. What specific kind of appeals, you may ask? Now, whether it's Buddhist nations like Sri Lanka, Singapore, Malaysia, and many other places worldwide, including Canada and the United States, as well as in countries such as Myanmar, Laos, Vietnam, and many other diverse places across the globe. Actually, in many of these regions, as devout Buddhists, people reverently commemorate the Buddha's sacred birth and profound enlightenment. However, within the distinct traditions of Han Buddhism and Tibetan Buddhism, such significant commemorations are observed with relatively less frequency and are considered quite rare. For example, in Tibetan Buddhism, during the rains retreat, there are some, and at the end of the retreat, they talk about the 12 deeds of Shakyamuni Buddha. As for the Han Chinese regions, there are also some significant bathing the Buddha festivals on the 8th day of the 4th lunar month. However, the overall scope of these particular events is not very broad or widespread. Starting from this current year, as devoted Buddhists, can we conscientiously observe tomorrow, the 15th day of the 4th lunar month, as a special day for the Buddha? Although here at Laronggar, when we hold Dharma assemblies, we also observe the 4 major Buddhist festivals, but among these 4 significant festivals, the most important one is the 15th day of the Sagadawa month, which is very significant. The 15th day of the Sagadawa month is actually celebrated in many Southeast Asian countries where people commemorate the Buddha by observing Vesak. Back in 1995, when the precious His Holiness visited Singapore, we also participated in this event. We attended 2 sessions. In the evening, we joined their association's performance. There was a very large statue of Shakyamuni Buddha, and beneath this statue, middle school students, elementary school students, and university students each performed beautiful dances or sang melodious songs in their own unique ways to praise the Buddha. It was truly a wonderful and inspiring sight. Then during the day, His Holiness himself also personally visited some temples and participated in the event. Moreover, from an international global perspective, this is truly and indeed very important actually. This includes some figures from the political world of various countries. For example, back in the year of 2006, it seems that Obama, the former president of the United States, he also truly attended some wonderful Vesak Day celebrations and made heartfelt aspirations. I think it was in Thailand specifically. At that significant time, there were esteemed leaders from 44 different countries, as well as many devoted participants. It was grandly held at a very large and impressive venue in Thailand. The former UN Secretary General Kofi Annan also participated in and generously supported the significant event. And in the year 2016, Ban Ki-moon, who was the esteemed former Secretary General, also personally attended the proceedings. At that time, he also spoke about many of the merits of Buddhism, especially now, as humanity currently faces all kinds of significant and numerous problems. It is only the truly compassionate spirit of Buddhism that can effectively resolve them, that can truly put an end to human wars, suffering, and so on. He spoke about many very meaningful and profound things. So even now, not to mention the flourishing of Buddhism, these Theravada Buddhist countries, including this year's esteemed Prime Minister of India, he also actively participated in the significant Buddha's commemorative festival and conference. In this particular case, if even political figures and some leaders in our world attach such a great importance to Buddhist festivals, then I truly think as temples, as dedicated Buddhists, as spiritual Dharma centers, indeed, there's various centers and societies for such groups. If throughout the entire 365 days of the calendar year, it truly seems that the Buddha's most important festivals are completely and utterly ignored, then I'm afraid that's not very reasonable or acceptable. Therefore, based on various comprehensive observations and careful considerations of the current situation, we sincerely hope that within the entire scope of Tibetan Buddhism, starting effectively from this current year, in every single monastery and religious institution, some sacred ceremonies commemorating the Buddha will also be held with great reverence indeed. As for Larung Gar, specifically, a couple of days ago, just recently here, because we were holding a Vajrasattva Dharma assembly, there was a bit of a scheduling conflict. So we held it earlier on one of the days of the Sakya month, 2 days ago. We also held a relatively simple yet meaningful ceremony. For example, at my monastery, the Duomang Buddhist Academy, they are also planning for tomorrow, all the monks, as well as some dedicated lay followers, everyone will gather together to have a truly quite and indeed very meaningful, a commemorative Dharma assembly in remembrance of the revered Buddha. You could truly call it a solemn Dharma assembly or simply a meaningful day of observance. So what I mean is, starting from tomorrow, we will hold a symbolic event tomorrow because time is rather tight and we didn't have time to announce it online. But tomorrow, as Buddhists, we will recite the supreme practice ritual of Shakyamuni Buddha, and before and after, recite the King of Aspiration prayers, the actual aspiration. In the middle, we will chant 1,000 times. Then we will do a simple, since we have too many lamps here, we are worried about the risk of fire, so we will make a simple lamp offering and flower offering. But I hope that in every place, as long as you are a Buddhist, if you really don't have the conditions to gather with others, then by yourself. When I was young, every single time there was a special Buddhist festival or celebration, I would always ask my dear mother if she could kindly give me a little bit of butter, please. When she gave me a bit of butter, I would make a lamp for myself, and then at first I truly didn't even have a proper Buddha statue at all. I used a stone instead. Looking back now, I truly think what I did was right. That stone was just like a sacred Buddha statue to me, a symbol of reverence. It was a triangular-shaped one. I treated it as the Buddha, and then in front of it, it was actually just a plain stone, and I offered a small lamp in front of the stone. When I was little, maybe I did have some good roots, because at that time, religion wasn't open yet, and things like Buddha statues and thangkas were extremely hard to find. Basically, you couldn't find them at all. Even if you did, people didn't trust each other. It was very difficult. So at that particular time, every time there was an elderly lama living next door to us, he would often say, "Today is such and such Buddha's festival, and tomorrow is another Buddha's festival." So I would take that special stone, place it carefully on a special stone slab, and reverently offer a glowing lamp in front of it. But I was also deeply afraid that if the neighbors or other people found out, they might certainly report me. That could have caused some serious trouble for everyone. So I kept it very secret, carefully, hanging clothes on all sides inside the tent to hide. I would recite some mantras alone, quietly and privately, and keep chanting until the lamp went out. After it was over, I felt, oh, I've finished making offerings to the Buddha. But actually it was just a stone that looked somewhat like the Buddha. Last year when I was teaching the Lotus Sutra, I said that even children playing like this still accumulate merit. Actually, nowadays, things are more convenient. You can find a thangka or a statue. If, for reasons of faith, it's inconvenient to have one at home, you can just readily download one from the internet. You can even display a Buddha image on your computer. If, by chance, someone who does not believe in the principles of Buddhism happens to come by, you can simply and immediately switch to the activity of playing a game without any hesitation whatsoever. It's really convenient for us now. So we've made a spontaneous decision right here on the spot that tomorrow, wherever each of you may be, we will all come together to celebrate a very significant Mahayana Buddhist Vesak Day. Vesak Day is the full moon day, a significant and sacred occasion for Buddhists worldwide, which means in effect, when the Shakyamuni Buddha was born or attained enlightenment, the moon was indeed truly and completely full, shining brightly. Therefore, at that significant and auspicious time, the esteemed World Fellowship of Buddhists, in the memorable year 1950, meticulously held a grand and deeply meaningful commemorative assembly for our revered master Shakyamuni Buddha which was meant to commemorate the event from 2,500 years ago. What exactly was decided at this significant assembly? That the auspicious full moon day in May of the Gregorian calendar would be officially considered the revered Buddha's Vesak day. In both the Tibetan and Han regions, we very rarely talk about this important Vesak day, and unfortunately most Buddhists basically don't even know about it either. So we feel that the Buddha's enlightenment and realization are extremely auspicious events for the entire trichiliocosm, very auspicious indeed. Therefore, we can truly treat it as a very auspicious day. Tomorrow, we can indeed consider it for our plans. An auspicious day for both Buddhists and non-Buddhists alike. On such an auspicious day, like in the Western world, when they celebrate the joyous occasion of Christmas, there are festive Christmas trees and, of course, the beloved Santa Claus. There's a Christmas dinner and many other things. Of course, some of them kill chickens, which is something we do not agree with. We can enjoy truly auspicious meals and delightful auspicious dishes, as well as some very auspicious cards. So starting from next year, this year might be too late. I hope that among us Buddhists here, those with special technical skills, whether in contemporary artificial intelligence or in making cards and various media, those who are able can make more and make them more colorful and diverse. So for next year's upcoming Vesak Day, that is the sacred full moon day in May, which is observed according to the Gregorian calendar worldwide, this date is basically the same in both the Tibetan and lunar calendars. On that particular day, which is also a significant Buddhist day, it is additionally an exceptionally auspicious day. In this manner, it will be very complete and truly perfect. Of course, if we were to calculate based on the Buddha's actual birthday, some of the Buddha's birthdays in the Tibetan and lunar calendars are a little bit different from those found in other historical records. In the past, it should have been during the time of King Zhao of the Zhou dynasty, according to astronomical phenomena. It was said that a truly magnificent glowing red light was seen in the western sky. Why was this phenomenon occurring? At that time, some ancient fortune tellers said that a sage had been born in the West. Based on this, it was said that the Buddha had descended into the world. They carefully engraved these significant words on a stone, and then, 1,000 years later, the sacred Dharma would eventually come to our cherished land. Later, during the reign of Emperor Ming of Han, Buddhism came to China, and at that time, the White Horse Temple in Luoyang was established. We have indeed talked about this particular history before as well. Of course, these specific things may have quite different origins in historical contexts. But in any case, we can consider the 15th day as an auspicious day in Buddhism. It has the word Buddha, but even without the word Buddha, it's fine. It's okay if it's not there. If someone doesn't have religious faith, they are happy without Buddha. Because when it comes to religious belief, in fact, religion very often tends to be a kind of personal psychological state for certain individuals. For example, in Christianity, if some special religious symbols are absent, it might be easier for non-Christians to accept. It's precisely the same in Buddhism. Sometimes we Buddhists might truly prefer to have the specific word Buddha used, but non-Buddhists don't necessarily need that particular word Buddha. In any case, I think on the 15th day, our great master Shakyamuni Buddha realized the true nature of all phenomena and truly understood the original meaning of all things. So, for our entire world, this is also a day of light, a day of auspiciousness, and a very meaningful day as well. As Buddhists, if we have no ceremonies or rituals on this important day and no form of expression of our faith, it is truly regrettable. I see that in other religions, especially in Christianity, nowadays in all non-Christian hotels and everywhere else, what have they already become? I see that in almost every single and individual occasion, all of their non-Christian venues, and even in some atheist settings, if you were to really inquire deeply about it, why exactly do they consistently do these particular things? If you don't even believe in God, why do you do it? Many people can't answer that. But they have already been influenced by some of these rituals. We do not oppose this. It's actually very good. Everyone has this kind of spiritual support. In this way, whether it's Christianity, Buddhism, or any other religion, I think it's a wonderful remedy for the soul. It's very good. In this situation, as devoted Buddhists, I believe that tomorrow should indeed be a very special and auspicious day for all of us, right? Therefore, I sincerely hope that all our Dharma friends gathered here today can feel free and unburdened, especially if you genuinely feel it's necessary and beneficial to participate fully. You can also participate in reciting a Buddhist practice ritual as well. If you feel a bit tired today, that's completely up to you as well. Just a few dedicated people can recite a ritual. But I truly hope that starting next year should be in your own specific individual place, wherever you are, with sincere devotion. As I just said, whether it is a temple, an individual, or a group, everyone misses the revered Buddha, and there is this auspicious and wonderful occasion. I hope that everyone present eats more and enjoys this special moment to the fullest. This is what makes people happiest. What exactly constitutes auspicious rice, auspicious dishes, and auspicious drinks? We can tie a lucky knot and present auspicious gifts. There's also auspicious chocolate and many other auspicious items. By embracing all these auspicious elements, everyone involved might truly feel much happier and more joyful. At a certain time, many excited young children are always waiting eagerly, wondering when the auspicious day will arrive each year. On the day the auspicious day comes to them, there are so many delicious things to eat. But now, many children don't really feel anything, whether it's tasty or not. In the past, even just one piece of candy would make us feel we'd look forward to when we could eat that candy. But now, I don't know if that's still the case. Maybe it is, right? So, each and every one of us Buddhists should seriously reflect on this important question. Why don't we have a special, annual, and widely recognized expression or commemoration for the Buddha's profound spiritual awakening and enlightenment? There isn't even a single ceremony. If there are no ceremonies, perhaps our tradition cannot be passed down. So today, I am earnestly calling on everyone, and I sincerely hope that this year, we can truly make some significant preparations. And next year, at precisely this same time, on the sacred day of the Buddha's enlightenment, we should release the animals, offer the lamps, and gather together to celebrate. Nowadays, people in the world may not only do good deeds, but in our actions, we also need to have a kind of truly mutual and effective communication with others, fostering a profound sense of reciprocal mutual gain and understanding. For example, if I want to give you a certain gift, but I don't give it to you right away, I will give it to you on an auspicious day instead. Because you are a Buddhist and I am a Buddhist too, then you can guess what exactly this is. It's my absolute favorite thing, but I won't give it to you now. I want to keep it a secret for 75 days. And then the other person keeps waiting and waiting. And when the time comes, they say, oh, so it was this. Wow, that's really nice. That's precisely how it is. All right then, I sincerely hope that we can effectively utilize this kind of truly convenient and efficient method, because in many places across the world, there truly are significant commemorative days dedicated to the Buddha. For example, if you journey to revered places like Thailand, the serene kingdom of Bhutan, or the spiritual land of Nepal, you will find that when it comes to certain special and sacred days honoring the Buddha, every single household, as long as they are devout Buddhists, actively participates in the observances and celebrations. Will often have a Buddhist flag proudly displayed at their door. No matter where you may go, it's always like this. There's a very strong and palpable Buddhist atmosphere everywhere you look, truly. And of course, the situation in each country isn't necessarily the same. But when it truly comes to one's deeply personal faith and their individual life's spiritual journey, the control is in your own hands. In this kind of situation, we still have our own small-scale personal rituals. Of course, as for us, if we are talking about monasteries, then there should be certain established rituals within the monastery. However, we observe that in many monasteries, there isn't much done for the day of the Buddha's enlightenment either. Some places do celebrate the Bathing the Buddha festival quite well, though. Now, in some monasteries and practice centers, they do have the Bathing the Buddha festival. I've seen it, I'm not sure if you have. His Holiness also participated in the Bathing the Buddha ceremony at that time. There was a truly meaningful photo taken on that occasion. At that time, the esteemed teacher also spoke extensively about the profound merits of the Buddha. Actually, on that very day, we truly should have shared many more touching and inspiring stories about the Buddha. We could also have performed some very meaningful and impactful programs. That way, I truly think it would be much more meaningful, right? Now, I'll recite this transmission.
Tener geçir nyande jibadan kemnya ke li tagnak serkim do donjava jitem kumbukon ne raptem ze mu bandala kan gasem zamba janjim Nyambani Yosomba Jendo, the Jogam, Jitombam, Sumba, Meba, Tabi, Wombo, Jesus, Jambi, Namjer, the Shavan, the Sanji Judonso. Sanji Judonson, Janjava, the Donijam, the Gun give his own Midolabam, Sanjendra, Barasho, Sameja, the two times that Nala Ramjan may be to Mungane, Archimer Tombania, the time Jonga, Gamazonji, give me the Ramdan children, Jamso, Rented Santrapania, down the Tombam, so many judges again of Sergium, Dojams and the Vision, the Chuko, Sonso Dorjetino, Sherry Sound, Shakjalok, Shawn, Yajo, 13 hours of surgery to Zujit she was a traveling near Chip, on Newton Church, Song, Jam to Cordion, Jamatan, Jim Daniel, Namjude, and Chocolate, Yakun, the Chamber of Sir. Near the chamber, so the Nimi, don't George, take a tongue and show the Hasian Yashba. Theatre, San Jir, Kalam, the Teamus can be simply mad of the Sandian and Ishijir. Chodan Tikan the Gun, Yaram, Jirkan, the Mubatania, the Niberjiber and Yertem, Dole, Kajisanji, Shebatim, then the Tabaja Toto Shinji Loshijan, Nibakal number 2, Josomba, Yaratenia Lamine, Sozoba, and Magia. Shouldn't so by young Mazapa guest I chidn't Mazar Timdo Parochilla Geate Tom Tontum Chobar Shibijan, Same by Sonum Perunger, Yumon Kuru Dungur Tamcher Pounder, Division Dunamo, Don Zabmanger, Jibadan, Team Dunder Monum Chertapa, Division Dun Jeverte, Jawa, Jengayon of Tambale, Chunum Tamcher James and the Mitila Raptor, Nekungar Monum Chertapa, Team Driver. Tobrnger Jir on bits Rangiber Tsurangiba Tambo Kitty, Niba Tambo Kitty, Nyaji Morto, the Nimis and Don and Monum Chimorga, the Parker Tangon Santo General Tombati, Janajam, dozen Cosum Kids, Long Chickens and Chuputran, Whenever Tomen, South to Mali, Banyan, and Yobachobus, Pardon Suzuki, and Tilson Salajis, and Zatan Chichi, Church German Court of Suritan and Amkata, Tilson Ponger, Maber, Jim, other general changing. Certain Jeffrey Circuit now and so the petitions of a guest with him catching Rockala, another Chijero, the Mission, Chijero, Comotober. Dr. Human Rome Gomen, I think the Labors of Quadrant, the Gender in the Renton now some technology. They should come to some Jubari, Jeta, Sun, the Narmundi, Tamjim, Mamma, Shanjavar, the Tijins and Zoda, G. Charbur, Tombagus, Jil, Yambirkula, 30 with the Lamar, Tomba, John, the Dons of the What Jarash Catabala, Shamsalom, Chodor, Chasm, G. General Lee, Gilkeri, Yikin Yung Sumba Zono, Dieta Minimin Mahamani, Dieta Minimin Duma, and the Mus, Tomba Jisset and the Tapisim Sirchi, Berkala, Sarah Muni, Sanjoba, Donzon, everything you Tomberkali, was not so very knowledge about Simpson, Jivadan, Tabachimbolamji on the Surgeon Kedivation, Mardova San, number of Samla, Tansam Nam, some manders or Taptutu, Nyarje Parker, Yeche, Rura, Kiev, not so Tevision, Shubim, San Gersa, Bando. Dotun star chini flowers is ahon thousand lots of tola generation of some Jung better times in Yamchatan Tolo in the Chujions Yamni do a Jimbutu come Chodon tomorrow start of Sura Ji Sokjang Soba Som Koi Sok the Jagoroji so Mandragoga.
And I'll also recite a short protective prayer. Otherwise, you all would be too, you know.
Onkanto Zamai Traversan, Germaka, Maisha, Jim, so solo, Chodo, Chenlim, the Shang Chom Chimbura, Tribunal, Yodom, Chividan, Zada, Dirkot, Solom, Jodo, Chenlim, Zodo, Tamji, Jimbutil, Jedi, Damanza Company, Scanjasam, Jetri, Solom, Chodo, Chenlim, Zodo, Shapama, Guanim to which Chitan over Gerbayan, Sagumar Pukan, Solom, Jodo, Chenlim, Zodo.
This is the short offering to the Dharma protectors. The long one we don't have time for.
Kendo Dongo Ralam to Cherry Bamijim San Jano Drat Bamja, Solam Jodoson, Gems the Kanji Latam Bazam Jendo Bongo of Terum Zabai, or Tianam Jeto, Sam Domali, Nyan Zot.
This is the transmission recitation. Just now there was the Shakyamuni ritual and the short offering for the Tsok feast. There are also a few brief protective prayers to recite. This is my earring. As I just mentioned, tomorrow we will be engaging in the recitation of the Shakyamuni ritual. Following that, we will proceed to recite the profound, the King of Aspiration prayers, the actual aspiration in Chinese. After these significant recitations, everyone present will... I am currently uncertain if I will have time tomorrow. If I do, I'd also like to join in, indeed, to recite together with everyone. But I probably won't have sufficient time to give a detailed explanation tomorrow. The main thing is to make aspirations together. When making these aspirations, let me also mention this important point to everyone right now. You must keep in mind that our teacher, Shakyamuni Buddha, when he was still at the causal ground, endured so much for us sentient beings trapped in the cycle of samsara within the three realms. He paid such a great price. He gave away his body so many times as an offering. He undertook so many acts of asceticism, these things. We have also studied the extensive biography of Shakyamuni Buddha before. So every Buddhist should have a very deep, profound sense of gratitude in their hearts, a feeling that I am truly a devoted disciple in the Buddha's lineage. Just like a child feels deep gratitude toward their loving parents who raised them with love, with sincere appreciation, we too should have a special sense of gratitude. As Buddhists, this is also reflected in the transmission I just recited. In fact, the Buddha's compassion knows no distance, near or far. As long as we have faith, we can all truly receive his blessings, his divine empowerment and his divine protection. But if we lack faith, then indeed we will find ourselves lacking. Even if we were standing right in front of the Buddha at that time, we might not necessarily receive these benefits. So these fundamental Buddhist principles, though they may seem very simple and straightforward on the surface, are actually profound and deeply significant truth. As devoted Buddhists, we must truly and thoroughly understand them. If you genuinely don't understand, as I have mentioned earlier, even during these past few days, when we have been practicing the Vajrasattva Dharma assembly, those with a foundation in study and contemplation, they tend to practice quite well. But for those whose foundation in study and contemplation is very weak, for these people, even if they have spent time in a certain Dharma center or elsewhere in the past, some have studied for 20 years, some have done retreats for 5 or 6 years already. But a simple confession practice, confession itself, is actually a relatively simple in our practice. They still don't do it properly according to the Dharma. So nowadays, some people think what I'm opposed to is, without any foundation in study and contemplation, right after taking refuge on the very next day, they say, oh, I want to go into retreat and do actual practice. I want to meditate. But in reality, this is just a matter of formality. As Buddhists, we shouldn't be overly superstitious at all. Right now, among many practicing Buddhists, there's a very common tendency nowadays. There are actually quite a lot of people with superstitious tendencies. This is a fact. When others criticize Buddhists, saying all sorts of negative things about us, sometimes we feel uncomfortable about it. But in fact, if we look at things objectively, sometimes we Buddhists are too emotional, and sometimes we really don't understand the actual teachings of Buddhism itself, whether it's compassion or wisdom, whether it's renunciation or bodhicitta. These are all extremely important things. But we never really take the time to study them properly. Nor do we make a genuine effort to truly understand them. Instead, we often spend all day focusing solely on formalities superficially, constantly attending this or that various Dharma assembly, and nowadays some people are even called Dharma assembly lay practitioners. Wherever there's a Dharma assembly, they go. But when it comes to listening, contemplating, and practicing the teachings, their foundation is extremely, extremely weak. These Dharma assembly lay practitioners have indeed attended countless Dharma assemblies, but when it comes to actually practicing, for example, this time, with a simple Vajrasattva recitation, sadhana, some people don't know the basics. We've talked about this before during the words of my perfect teacher, and also when we studied the Bodhisattva's way of life. But even after explaining it, it doesn't help. This time I noticed that some lay practitioners don't even understand the basic respect that should be shown to the three jewels and their supports. Dharma texts, Buddha statues, thangkas, they casually step over them or even tread on them. It's as if they just put them anywhere, including that day when we were lining up to come in. when you were kindly given a clear plastic bag to carefully put your dirty shoes in after a long and tiring day, for the sake of keeping the shrine hall clean and tidy. But how did some lay practitioners handle it? They put Buddha statues at the bottom, then placed a Vajrasattva tanka on top, and then carefully placed their shoes on top of that, carrying it all together. They meticulously put their shoes at the very top, with the revered Buddha statue underneath. There are actually many people who do this. And in our daily lives, sacred Buddha statues, precious sutras, and even the spinning prayer wheels, people casually step on them, sit on them. They casually cross over them without a second thought. Even such simple things as this, which have been repeatedly emphasized so many times in the Buddhist scriptures, and every time in class, these principles have been explained countless times. But as soon as you see your actions, it's obvious at a glance that you don't understand Buddhism at all. Yet you keep saying, I have some realization. I have such and such a guru. I have some incredible dharma. When you talk about it, it all sounds so lofty and impressive, with especially grand and truly heroic words. Wow, really? They might not even need a full week, and yet they have already soared far beyond the known universe, reaching incredible new heights. There are indeed extraordinary individuals like this in the world. So in these modern times, sometimes we find ourselves simply continuing to praise and admire them blindly. But it doesn't have any effect. Some people, it seems, have just started, and as soon as they've heard and thought a little, they start talking. Today, we're going to talk about retreat practice. But as for a matter of retreat, at the very beginning, I really don't praise it at all, right? I've talked about this at the Tara Dharma Assembly in Hong Kong. At the very least, we should study and contemplate for 5 to 10 years. Ideally, if it's because of your age, or if your foundational level is especially low, maybe it's not possible for you to study all 5 great treatises. But if you have all the necessary conditions, I think it's best to study all 5 great treatises thoroughly, and then practice the profound Vajrayana teachings, and then go on to diligently study the generation stage and the completion stage, and the teachings of Dzogchen and so on. If you don't even have the basics, if you don't even have these foundational studies, contemplation and practice, then it's truly very difficult to practice nowadays. Some people say that the 5 great treatises only increase conceptual thoughts and add to the cognitive obscuration. Such statements are really quite laughable. The cognitive obscuration are mainly eliminated after the 7th Phumi and are a very subtle kind of obstacle. If you look at the 5 great treatises and the study of them, how could that possibly increase the cognitive obscuration? So sometimes, indeed, some of the jokes we Buddhists make ourselves are actually quite humorous and very interesting. So what I really truly want to say is, this is actually, today the main requirement is for everyone to do a retreat. But when it comes to undertaking a retreat, many of us may not have the necessary conditions or resources for such a retreat. Unless you're not practicing any method at all right now, these days in some countries, there's something called a dark retreat. In a dark retreat, there's no virtuous practice at all. Inside, they just teach. And the price for a single week is very, very expensive, indeed extremely expensive. Then after you actually go in, you really don't have to do anything at all. You can do absolutely whatever you truly desire, long as during those 7 or 21 days, you don't come out and you don't see any light. Other than that, there are no requirements. In some places, it's basically no different from a detention center or a prison. There's really not much difference, because inside, in a prison, police officers come and question you regularly. But in here, there's nothing like that. You can do whatever you truly desire, but now people are especially fond of it. Oh, when it's their turn, indeed, you see, they signed up a year or even 2 years ago. Maybe this doesn't sound very pleasant to hear, but no matter what, I think if it's a Buddhist retreat, at the very least there should be some methods for liberation. If there are no methods for liberation at all, and you're just allowed to do whatever you want inside, then I don't know. But people nowadays are really confused. They don't truly practice teachings that are genuinely nourishing, teachings that are truly valuable and beneficial. People think if I'm on retreat, the master must guide me. If the master isn't guiding me, I won't know how to practice. What you don't know how to practice. This isn't about master guiding. If the master guides you, your level is too low. Usually the master teaches during listening and contemplation. I can point out the path to liberation, but liberation depends on yourself. Even our teacher, Shakyamuni Buddha, when he practiced with his disciples, he would explain the path to liberation to them. But liberation depends on yourself. Shakyamuni Buddha didn't go to each person, Shariputra, come here, today I'll teach you meditation. He didn't whisper in their ear, nothing like that. The Buddha had given instructions and guidance. But now many lay practitioners are quite confused. At times like this, many people tend to think, that's absolutely great. We truly need someone to properly guide us in our daily practice. And then quite often they end up paying a significant amount for it themselves. This includes people from other religions as well. There are all kinds of spiritual practices. They often call it a retreat in name, a period of withdrawal. Some other religions, for example, have strict fasting, which involves not eating any food, sometimes paying 5,000 or even 10,000 yen for a full 7 days. Many people are especially enthusiastic about this. They say, I must go, not eating feels so good. But actually, you don't necessarily have to go to those specific places. You could just stay in your very own room, not eat anything, and sit there completely by yourself. It might actually be about the very same. Honestly, many certain people sometimes, with wisdom, when we encounter these situations that arise around us, we don't say anything bad directly to them. We say, wow, that's really extraordinary, amazing, truly impressive. That's what we say. If we didn't say it, it might not be appropriate either. But in reality, our kind of retreat, today, I mainly want to talk to everyone about what we call retreat. Nowadays, there are all kinds of retreats. Some are work retreats, some life retreats, some travel retreats, and some are like those described in old martial arts novels. That kind of retreat they talked about. When many people hear about retreats, they are very surprised and even a bit scared. What exactly does retreat mean? There are all sorts of different situations that can arise, but actually a true and authentic Buddhist retreat, for us as devoted Buddhists, is truly best to observe it with wisdom. So, what does it indeed mean to really observe with wisdom? In other words, for ourselves, we must consider, of course, if your body and mind need to temporarily focus on health or suppress your emotions, then participating in all kinds of retreats like these is completely fine. As long as you have the conditions, we do not object. But in Buddhism, the retreat for listening, contemplating, and practicing the teachings is truly very different from many worldly retreats. This is something we must fully and completely understand. If we don't truly understand this, then Buddhists carry yellow bags every day, carrying a lot of things on their backs, and go to retreat places in all directions, east, south, west, and north. A certain Lama is teaching a retreat method, so I want to go. But as for the real retreat method, they don't know it, nor am I clear about what is taught. If it is taught, that's very good. But when it truly comes to a place for genuine retreats, like in our Tibetan Buddhism, in Venerable Longchenpa's 3 Bases and 3 Virtues, a practice manual, the 141 guidance instructions. Back in 1992, when we first started, some people practiced them at that time. Later, a bhikshuni attained realization with these instructions. Those instructions state realization is attained after 6 months. After we had just finished teaching those guidance instructions, it was exactly 6 months until her passing into parinirvana. I've mentioned this in various treatises in the same way. So things like this, in Longchenpa's 3 Bases and 3 Virtues, the superior is to practice 1 instruction over 7 days. The middling method is to practice 1 over 3 days. So the superior is 7 days, the middling is 3 days. And for the inferior method, 1 guidance instruction is practiced per day. There are these kinds of approaches. But some people feel that with this kind of approach, wow, it's impossible to practice like this, that you have to go into a black hole. It's also possible to go into a black hole. But if your practice is not truly connected with a renunciation or bodhicitta and is not related to non-dual wisdom, or indeed, then simply suppressing your discursive thoughts like this is actually not true retreat. Patrul Rinpoche also mentioned in his teachings that if your practice lacks renunciation and bodhicitta, even if you do a 9-year retreat, you will gain nothing at all, and you won't even be able to plant a single seed of liberation. This has been made very, very clear. So sometimes, for many people who have never truly studied Buddhism or its core principles, it's understandable that you don't understand Buddhist retreat. I think that's perfectly reasonable. But for us as Buddhists, if we don't even understand the basics of practice, I think that's truly a tragedy for us Buddhists. Of course, if a very small number of people don't understand, we can accept that. Every group has such cases, but if most Buddhists are really practicing their faith blindly, then there is a real problem. So as Buddhists, we believe in the concept of the reason we require everyone to listen, contemplate, and practice is truly necessary. Nowadays, many people tend to treat Buddhism as just a temporary activity or as a kind of miraculous cure. Other than that, they truly don't see it at all as a highly systematic and structured form of educational guidance. If you do not truly regard it as an educational system and only see it as something mysterious, perhaps even superstitious, then you are missing the point. Or as some kind of supernatural power, or just as a temporary painkiller, a fleeting relief from immediate suffering, then you might be seeing Buddhism as just another doctrine, one among many philosophical systems. Therefore, in Buddhism, there is a very profound and systematic approach. Whether it's retreat or meditation practice like this, I personally feel that this kind of practice method, let me speak from my own experience. Some people here, those who attend my lectures as early as more than 10 years ago, when we were giving the second lecture on the way of the Bodhisattva, I already talked about the merits of bodhicitta. I suggested that everyone try to practice for half an hour every morning from 6 to 6:30. Later, many people actually practice this. The other day, I met some of them. They told me they have never stopped, and it's been more than 10 years now, every morning or evening without fail. They have practiced for at least half an hour without interruption. That's truly remarkable. At that time, I felt that although I was the one telling everyone to do this, I myself, to be honest, often, especially when I go out to teach the Dharma or give lectures, when I travel, I often, because of jet lag or time constraints, there was simply no way to keep it up. It's a bit easier when I'm at home. But some people might just simply say it out loud, actually, verbally, and their actual practice isn't very ideal. For example, last year, when I taught Mipham Rinpoche's meditation practice, I also required those who learned it with us to at least practice for a minimum of 7 days within a 12-month period. If you really don't have time, then you can add up single days here and there. As long as it totals 7 days, that's acceptable too. But when we did the statistics at the end of the year, it was only about 20% actually. Around 80% of people didn't have time to practice regularly throughout the entire year due to various reasons. But actually, it's not that they didn't have time to practice. It's just that out of habit, we don't practice. We don't want to practice. We're unwilling to practice. That's the real reason. So as Buddhists, if we don't engage in consistent practice, it's truly very difficult to effectively cut off the afflictions within our own mind streams. It's very hard to completely eliminate them and bring about lasting inner peace. This requires a certain kind of dedication and commitment. In the West, for any kind of knowledge, if you truly want to achieve a real significant breakthrough successfully, it's said that you need 10,000 hours of deliberate practice to master it. For example, whether it's a skill or something else, you need to really spend 10,000 hours on it to truly master it. So what does 10,000 hours look like? We work 8 hours a day at our jobs, and if you calculate it using that kind of time, it might take 5 or 6 years of hard work before you see any results. Only then will there be a relatively obvious transcendence beyond the ordinary person's level. So, when it comes to the practice of Buddhism in the modern era, it truly is quite lacking in many aspects. At Larung Gar, which encompasses the Buddhist Academy, the Larung Monastery, and the Lay Practitioners Center, in the past, there were specific and rigorous annual requirements for spiritual practice and diligent study that all members were expected to fulfill, which could be considered somewhat compulsory. At the very least, there was a clear requirement to undertake a 14-day retreat. After practicing for a few years continuously, the results have actually been quite good indeed. But this foundation must be built on solid study and contemplation. If you don't have such study and contemplation, it really is quite difficult. I think it's not just in Buddhism that spiritual retreats are valued so highly indeed. Even in the secular world, for example, Bill Gates, as he said, he does it primarily for his work, and every single year he diligently undertakes a 14-day retreat. However, he doesn't engage in this practice for spiritual liberation or to benefit all sentient beings. Instead, it's most likely for the advancement of his entrepreneurial ventures and the refinement of his overall business strategy. He has many profound ideas in this particular regard. So, as devoted Buddhists, we should carefully consider how to properly do a spiritual retreat. This is precisely what we truly want to discuss today. Originally, I had truly wanted to talk a little bit more about it, but perhaps it's not good to say too much, at this particular moment. Mainly what I want to talk about today is, firstly, the importance of taking a retreat. Everyone should truly understand the critical importance of a proper retreat. Then consider the duration of the retreat itself, for example. For some individuals, even 3 whole days is entirely possible. 7 days, or perhaps a period of 21 days, or even a full month, or indeed a grand total of 100 days. There are even specific 3-year retreats in Tibetan Buddhism, 3 years and 3 months exactly, or even 10 full complete years of dedicated intensive practice continuously without any interruption whatsoever. Back then, according to the words of Bodhidharma, he faced the wall for 9 years. In the biography of Patrul Rinpoche, it is mentioned there was a 9-year retreat. Such cases exist. But for most lay people, this is probably unrealistic. But generally speaking, out of the 365 days in a year, for example, during your holidays off work or by accumulating some valuable free time, you can certainly embark on a rejuvenating 3-day retreat somewhere quiet. Of course, as for retreat, in the past, we didn't study much about this aspect. So many questions may arise. Last year, when I asked everyone to do a retreat, many people didn't even look at the small issues themselves. Some individuals were perhaps too conservative in their approach, while others were conversely too open. What exactly does it mean to be considered too conservative? For instance, when I am in a retreat, am I permitted to make phone calls or send WeChat messages during the retreat? Can I pick up and drop off my kids? Can I have meals? Can I go to the bathroom perhaps? Can I actually really eat some roasted sunflower seeds? Can I go out shopping actually? Can I shop online for this or that specific item? Can I chat with other people casually and so on freely? Regarding these particular specific aspects, when you first start your personal retreat at the very beginning, you should definitely set up a clear boundary for yourself. Limit your own personal range. You truly need to draw a distinct circle. For example, if I want to do a 3-day retreat, it's just like when we participate in the rains retreat, from this specific point in time to that designated point, it's like making a clear and distinct mark to firmly establish a defined boundary or a particular area. There's this boundary, it's the same with retreat. Set it according to your own situation. For example, 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours in the afternoon. Then you use that as your retreat time. And during that time, how many sessions in the morning? How many in the evening? Most of it follows our previous essential instructions for retreat. Back then, the essential instructions for retreat I compiled was based on the pith instructions of Achung Rinpoche, His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche, and combined with the key points from many other masters. So you can do it this way as well. If there are some situations that are especially inconvenient, indeed for all of us as truly lay practitioners, it might be quite really difficult for you to go into retreat directly indeed. Right now, if you try to cut off all discursive thoughts completely, it can be quite challenging. But do your best to practice in this area. In Tibetan area, when people talked about going into retreat, especially lay people, everyone would anxious retreat. How do you do a retreat? Does that mean I don't eat or drink? Does that mean I don't sleep? Does that mean I can't talk to anyone for 7 days? That's too lonely, it might not work. What if I get troubled by afflictive emotions? What should I do? There are a lot of worries and concerns. But actually, I think these concerns are unnecessary. If you find yourself having discursive thoughts or talking to yourself, perhaps out loud in a way that feels distracting or unhelpful, it's not going to cause any major problems like what you might think. The Dharma protectors will punish me or something bad will happen. There's really nothing like that. Just try to meditate for as long as you can. When we're just starting out, it's okay to be a bit more relaxed. That way, it might actually be better. If you become stricter and stricter with yourself, it can get quite difficult. But after a while, you will gradually bring your practice onto the right and proper path eventually. The omniscient and highly revered master, Longchen Pa, when teaching the treasury of pith instructions, talked about the outer, inner, and secret, as well as higher, middle, and lower levels. He described 6 types of retreat. As for the outer retreat, it means that during your retreat, you try to stay away from external environments filled with desire, anger, ignorance, and distraction as much as possible. Keep your distance from them, as we are easily distracted by external conditions. Especially for us ordinary people, if external circumstances arise, it will probably be difficult. This is meant by the outer retreat. Then the inner retreat. All kinds of greed, anger, jealousy, and pride within the mind should be eliminated as much as possible, these negative emotions. And then on the positive side, qualities like faith, compassion, wisdom, and bodhicitta should be increased as much as possible. Then at a certain stage, it is called the secret retreat. During the secret retreat, apart from abiding in the natural luminosity of one's own mind, in the non-dual state of emptiness and clarity, all grasping and objects of grasping must be completely let go of. Letting go of all grasping and objects of grasping, abide in a state of, in some of our practice centers, right from the beginning, everyone is told to just abide and not think about anything. This is actually a bit risky. At the very start, you don't even have the basics. You're not even a lay practitioner yet, nor have you done any preliminary practices. From the beginning, it's all about not thinking about anything. If you just sit like this all the time, sometimes it could be. It's still important to build a solid foundation, especially for the secret retreat, because this is the secret retreat. The outer retreat is about first dealing with the external distractions of the body. For the inner retreat, you try your best to practice virtuous actions. When it comes to secret retreat, all of these attachments and discursive thoughts must be completely let go of. This is indeed the secret secluded retreat. Then there is also the upper, more advanced retreat. In this upper retreat, one does not pray for any supernatural powers, seek the blessings of the yidam, or even hope for prophecies. None of these should be sought after. You should simply abide in your own truly natural state calmly and effortlessly. And as for the lower retreat, you should not have, during your practice, worries that you are practicing incorrectly or develop wrong views. Do not harbor doubts about the true Dharma or develop wrong views about cause and effect. All these various negative thoughts should be completely abandoned. Then deeply abide in your own state. Sometimes you may earnestly and sincerely pray to the Guru, the three jewels, or the Dharma protectors. This is called the lower retreat. Then, as for the middle retreat, upper, middle, and lower, what is the middle retreat like? For everything you have practiced above, do not become particularly attached to them. Sometimes during your practice, you may have some good dreams or some positive signs may appear. But at that time, you should not become overly happy, thinking, wow, maybe I have attained realization. My retreat is a success. Do not think like that. Sometimes you might have nightmares, your body may feel uncomfortable, your mood may be bad, or you may feel especially lonely and isolated. Some of us are especially emotional. One moment, as we often say, just like spring weather, a moment when we're feeling extremely happy, smiling even more radiantly and brightly and truly than the Maitreya Buddha. And the next moment, we're suffering so much that it's truly as if we're in even more pain than beings in the Avicii hell. We shouldn't be like this. We should treat all good and bad things, all appearances, as if they are like a dream or an illusion. Understanding that things are like a dream is important. In daily life or spiritual practice, no matter what kind of situation we're in, we shouldn't become overly attached. Actually, everything, absolutely everything we experience, when examined according to the middle way and Dzogchen perspectives, then there's really absolutely nothing at all that we truly need to be particularly attached to, you see. Whether we look at its causes and conditions, its very nature, or the final result it manifests, all of it can be said to be unattainable ultimately. In the conventional sense, everything is like a dream or illusion. With this understanding, we encounter various states in our practice, right? This is really very important. So what exactly is it that I want to share with everyone? It's about this kind of inner, outer, and secret, higher, middle, and lower, a comprehensive approach to a mindful retreat practice. This is one method of spiritual practice. Of course, as I've mentioned previously, whether you do a 7-day retreat or not, many people often say that they don't really know how to do a retreat. There's truly nothing difficult at all about doing a retreat. It really depends on your own understanding of Buddhist teachings. If you don't understand anything at all, then maybe you truly won't know how to do it. No matter how much you pay, nowadays in many places in the West, things like so-called yoga retreats and meditation practices have truly become one of the most effective and best ways to make money. Some people now specifically use it and leverage it as a tool for making money and then promote it in various ways. But actually, this kind of approach, for a true Buddhist practitioner, you don't necessarily have to spend money. You should be able to find some guidance in books, especially in the teachings of great masters from previous generations. For example, texts like the A Guide to the Words of My Perfect Teacher or some main practice teachings, if you study them thoroughly yourself, then whatever issues arise during your practice are all explained very clearly in these books. At any other place where you have to pay money, I've seen that many people have never actually done a retreat themselves and have never practiced at all, nor do they have any realization themselves. All they do is tell you, oh, you should gracefully go up like this, then smoothly go down like that, in a controlled manner. Now completely relax your entire body, and then gently do this, or perhaps even that specific movement. When you listen to it, you think, wow. And we are also quite naive, thinking, oh, I just went up, oh, I just went down, so that's exactly how it indeed is. Now you're ready. Tomorrow, I'll personally teach you the deepest Dharma. But tomorrow's class, the price might go up more than usual because we've been especially quite busy recently, so the price might possibly therefore need to be slightly adjusted a small amount. So as for practice, there's no problem. It's just like that. Some retreats, I think, for us Buddhists have nothing to do with renunciation, bodhicitta, or non-dual wisdom. Some of these retreat methods are truly and entirely unrelated. I don't really know how that is. Actually, in the past, among the great accomplished masters of India, out of the 84 Mahasiddhas, over 70 were lay people, and these lay practitioners. Have you ever read about them? The biographies of the 84 great Indian Mahasiddhas, if you take a look at them, most of them actually came from lower castes. But in the end, their retreat practice truly led them to accomplishment. When we went to India, many of the caves of these great accomplished masters, when we visited at that time, we also went to many of the great masters. including Saraha and Shavaripa, many of their retreat caves, there really are a lot of them. We should rely on ourselves to practice. Do not always solely depend on a particular spiritual guru or a certain Dharma center for guidance. Some people go to places they're not familiar with at all, and sometimes I really feel sorry for many of our devout Buddhists who often go to some places without proper methods. Of course, if you gain something for yourself, then anywhere is fine. But the main thing is to be clear about your own purpose. You need to observe and use wisdom to examine it. In short, as Mipham Rinpoche also said, whether our understanding of emptiness is correct or not, what is the ultimate sign of that? If we have unwavering faith in karma and dependent origination, if the afflictions in your own mind stream gradually become thinner and thinner, then what does this mean? This is your significant true sign of accomplishment. This is a sign of your realization. Some of us wonder, did I make a mistake in my retreat? Will something go wrong during my retreat? If your faith in the law of cause and effect keeps growing and the afflictions in your mind stream keep decreasing, it clearly shows that you practiced correctly and your retreat was indeed very successful. No matter what, that's a very good thing. If your profound compassion for all sentient beings keeps diminishing and gradually weakening, if you have less and less faith in the fundamental law of cause and effect and begin to develop increasingly wrong views, if you lose your deep faith in your guru and the precious 3 jewels, if the afflictions of greed, anger, and ignorance in your mind stream become stronger and stronger, and after coming out of a 7-day spiritual retreat, your temper has gotten worse, that's not good. Yesterday at our school's graduation ceremony, some of the students talked about one of our teachers saying, he may not be particularly tall, but he most certainly has a very big temper indeed. Not very tall, but possessing quite a formidable temper. So, if the duration of our spiritual retreat isn't very long, yet our afflictions are still numerous and deeply felt, then that particular situation might not be indicative of a truly positive outcome. Here, let me say something before I forget later. I might just add a word here. Today, I am especially and truly grateful to all the wonderful volunteers from various places who have come to help, including those working in charity. Every single year, people from many different places generously help college students, actively supporting students who are truly in need, diligently helping with elderly care activities, and even going to some remote schools and communities. Recently, I have also personally visited some schools myself. Many dedicated volunteers are truly committed to their work. They really embody the spirit of bodhisattvas. I personally feel that if you spend long time in a spiritual retreat but don't cultivate any genuine merit and instead just accumulate more and more afflictions, then it's not truly beneficial. It might be better to go to some remote places to help these children, help these elderly people, and do something truly meaningful for them. Perhaps this isn't really strictly considered the actual traditional merit of a spiritual retreat, but it is still an act of genuinely benefiting other people, isn't it? It's truly remarkable. So, I'd like to take this opportunity today, after so many years, especially within the remote areas of Tibetan area, to acknowledge and express profound gratitude to all those individuals who have genuinely and selflessly contributed to the vital cause of education. Because some young people, right after their graduation, may not have started actively looking for jobs yet, but instead truly go directly to various places in Tibetan area, and even to remote and underdeveloped regions like Yunnan and Guizhou, including now going to different places to help these impoverished students, to help these economically disadvantaged and poor areas. This, as followers of Mahayana Buddhism, is truly very important. I deeply admire those of you who undertake lifelong retreats, like some great masters in Tibetan Buddhism. But if one cannot do a lifelong retreat, or if one can make an even greater contribution, an even greater merit than a lifelong retreat, perhaps in some truly pitiable places, sentient beings who are truly in need, for them such a practice is indeed even more meaningful. Sometimes, from our very own perspective, certain actions may seem meaningless, but in reality, they are extremely significant. Just as Milarepa said, in Milarepa's eyes, sentient beings trapped in samsara are truly pitiable, while in the eyes of those sentient beings, Milarepa himself seems pitiable. There is such a saying. Because from the perspective of a practitioner, those who do not practice or are constantly creating negative karma, killing living beings all day long, everything they do goes against the law of cause and effect. And after they die, what will happen to them? That's what they think. On the other hand, those who don't believe in cause and effect think, these devout Buddhists, they often release animals and make generous contributions to various causes, go to remote places to teach. Are these individuals truly mentally unstable? Between us, there is indeed a significant and fundamental gap in our core values. This has always existed throughout history, this point. But indeed, everyone can truly judge things from their own individual perspective. That is also a valid way to measure and evaluate things. But from our own unique perspective, one thing is to practice meditation diligently, which is very meaningful. I don't even know if I'll truly have the opportunity or the chance to meditate in the future. I really, really want to meditate. However, my meditation practice has always been unfortunately postponed. If one day I really do die, you might think, at that time Khenpo truly wanted to meditate. But in reality, he actually left without ever finding the time to meditate. You might think that way. And I might also feel that regret. But deep down, I truly envy those who spend their whole lives in retreat, dedicating themselves to practice. I really admire such people. Another thing I greatly admire is that some people are completely free of selfishness and self-interest. They dedicate everything with a mind of pure altruism. They help all sentient beings. They don't seek fame, nor do they desire wealth. They don't care for so-called status or anything like that either. They even let go of all their own most cherished, most beautiful, and most beloved things. These people give up everything. Then they will often, indeed, go to certain specific places. Actually, in this world, there are all kinds of situations. Some are truly, truly admirable. These are also things especially worth envying. No matter what the circumstances may be, I am here today. And in short, I will say 3 important things. First, starting from tomorrow, we should remember our teacher, Shakyamuni Buddha. Every year we should hold such an auspicious event. I believe that relying on the inconceivable blessings and the power of our teacher Shakyamuni Buddha, anyone who forms such a connection with him, regardless of whether you have faith or not, will definitely receive auspiciousness. Second, I hope everyone will value spiritual practice. Otherwise, every day we'll just be making empty talk, constantly talking and talking, just like I do, and in the end, when we die, we won't have any confidence in our own mind streams at all. If we haven't subdued even a single bit of our afflictions, then it's indeed a truly pity to have obtained a precious human life. At the very least, we should endeavor to learn something significant. Study and practice need to be properly integrated. Otherwise, it will always be truly difficult. If you only practice or only study and contemplate, neither is sufficient. These two should mutually complement each other very well. Now, the third point, in the profound process of spiritual practice, if you are truly unable to go into a dedicated retreat, I would further suggest that many people still engage in meaningful charitable work in various altruistic activities without any trace of selfishness at all. This might be a bit difficult for ordinary people, but still, with very good intentions and a truly kind heart, do some profoundly meaningful and valuable things. I am especially grateful this particular time to the many dedicated volunteers during the recent Vajrasattva group practice, who voluntarily came here to generously offer their help this time. If it weren't for the incredible efforts of all of you, it really might have been very difficult indeed at certain times. Actually, at your appreciation event yesterday, I wanted to attend as well, but I had even more things to take care of. So sometimes when I go out, I also get very tired. Maybe I just have a lot of boundless energy inside of me, truly wanting to do this and also wanting to do that. So sometimes it genuinely feels like I make myself especially tired. Just yesterday, a wise Tibetan teacher told me, you really need to, at least once a week, take a full day to rest and rejuvenate your mind and body. He then sent me a long and detailed message in Tibetan, which was delivered through 4 separate distinct 60-second WeChat voice messages, each one conveying a portion of his thoughts and feelings. Maybe I do need to get a little bit of proper rest, but I really felt a bit regretful yesterday for not attending your special and important appreciation event. All in all, as I have said today, even in just a relatively short span of merely 7 or 8 days, sometimes we can clearly see it that many people are truly and genuinely motivated by altruism. Otherwise, sometimes, for example, during a Dharma assembly or an important event such as a special gathering, if everyone lacks this kind of compassion, it really becomes a bit difficult. Yesterday, we went out with some students to have fun, and in the end, there was a lot of trash left behind. But many of our volunteers worked hard to pick up all the garbage. By the time everyone left, the place was spotless and it felt really good inside. If none of us had compassion, we would just play there. And after we finished, we would just leave on our own. Everyone would be selfish, just getting a little something for themselves in the process. And if we left without a bit of compassion beyond that, what would this world become? So each of us needs to have compassion, and everyone should truly have a sense of self-awareness, not just waiting for others to always say, hey, come here, You do this, you need to pick up this trash. Come here, come here. It's not like that. We should be self-motivated. If we see somewhere that needs help, we should take the initiative to help. If we see a place suitable for spiritual practice, we should voluntarily go for retreat and meditation. And that's all for today's retreat. Goodbye. All right, we'll stop now here.
Bandara